Now 5 o'clock, we'll open the meeting. Thank you all, councillors and staff, for your attendance. Notice of the meeting. Notice hereby given that the ordinary meeting of West Coast Council held tonight, Tuesday the 27th of September. Recording of the meeting in accordance with Local Government Meeting Regulations 2015, the public is advised that proceedings of the meeting will be recorded on digital media to assist in the preparation of minutes and to ensure that true and accurate account of debate and discussions of the meeting is available. Acknowledgement of country. The West Coast Council acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land on which we gather today and pay respects to the elders past, present and emerging. Item 265, record of attendance, apologies and leave of absence. Have we got any apologies? No apologies. No approved leaves. Item 266, peculiar interest. Part of the meeting, councillors that have a peculiar interest of any item on the agenda can declare now or at the time of just before the discussion point. Any declared interest? Confirmation of the minutes. Recommendation is the minutes of the open meeting of West Coast Council held at the West Coast Council Chambers, 11 Stitch Street, Queenstown, Tuesday the 23rd of August 2022, a copy of which having been previously circulated to councillors prior to the meeting be confirmed as true and accurate record. So I'll move that way. Move Councillor Evans, seconded Councillor Shea. Put it to a vote. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Public partition question time. We've got no public in the gallery. No questions from the public. No. Okay. Item 269. Council raise issues. So where are we? Questions on notice. Councillor Ryan Sykes.
Through you, Mayor, my question on notice is referring you to the question related to the gorse problem in Zine, for which the previous response I received for the May 2022 meeting minutes was from the General Manager that the majority of the property is not council property but belongs to other state organisations and stakeholders, that there have been letters sent out to property owners and council still waiting on feedback regarding the Zine Rivulet and when they can come and talk to staff about that issue. So my question on notice for this meeting is, could council provide a list of state organisations and stakeholders to respond to managing the gorse problem surrounding Zine for those areas that council does not have jurisdiction for in managing it? And the second one of that is, when has the letters been sent out for those affected property owners as stated in the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council during the May 2022 meeting? Has council received any feedback with regards to the Zine Rivulet, and if so, from whom and when was that feedback received?
Yeah, so the organisations are either Parks and Wildlife Service, where it's a reserve, or Parks and Wildlife Service Property Services, where it's Crown land. The only other people that would have land there are private landholders, but to answer that question more specifically, would need to know exactly which parcels of land. And the photos, while you can sort of identify the general area, it's not specific enough to provide a list. Letters are sent to property owners in a baiting season, so that happened last year over summer, and it's just starting again now. So letters go out, but every year to minimise the fire risk over summer. Council doesn't have the power to enforce abatement notices against the Crown, as an aside. We've had an on-site meeting at Zine Rivulet at a staff level. We haven't received any formal feedback yet, so the letter initially came out from the Mayor. We expect a letter to come back from the Mayor with the Parks and Wildlife Service response.
And further, I did have correspondence from John Lloyd that said that he would be meeting with, or Parks would be meeting with staff, so it's good to see that they've met with regard to that. And we'll wait their reply.
Should be imminent.
Okay, questions about notice. Okay, so we've got, councillor Stringer, you had a question about notice? Oh, two, sorry.
First question's in relation to the mountain bike tracks in Mount Owen. The question is, with the tracks, I think they've now been through a full winter, has there been any inspection of the tracks to determine how they've held up? What monitoring will be done to ensure the tracks remain in a suitable condition, and pretty much what's the plan for managing them going forward?
So they have been monitored by council staff. There has been some deterioration, which we're currently in the process of addressing. Not more than would be expected. Our current plan is to manage the trails using council staff and calling contractors when required. We still don't understand the total cost of that. So this year we have separated out the cost codes and budgets, so we'll be able to have a better idea for next budget cycle how much that work costs.
My second question is in relation to the daily media summaries councillors receive. So do we use this service just to provide information to councillors, or is there some other metric or performance criteria it's used for?
So it's an important way to provide information to councillors about the West Coast and what's being spoken about. It also provides input into our reports to council on advocacy and the success or otherwise of our advocacy, and helps us prepare advocacy documents as well. We don't have any KPIs in the annual plan around that, but we do have those advocacy reports that are provided to council which talk about how successful or otherwise we've been on those advocacy items out of the annual plan, of which there's about 10, I believe.
Okay. Councillor Ryan Sykes,
Through you, Mayor.
questions about notice?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor. Could council please hold a public meeting in relation to the strong possibility of fish farming coming to our northwest coast, to have a balance of selection of speakers for informing people about the current situation and seek their opinions in relation to fish farming in our region? And as a supplement to this question, I've provided several maps of the IMAS statewide finfish aquaculture spatial planning exercise 2021 in that report, pretty much on page 17 onwards. There's shows sites which have identified as biophysically suitable high to medium for fin fishing farming on the north and northwest and west coasts. And that's my first question.
As far as I'm aware, there's no expansion of fish farming on the west coast, and the Strawn Aquaculture Community Forum does host an event each year where IMAS talks to people about fish farming. So then, of course, council can host meetings, but to do so would require councillors to make a decision and allocate budget and decide that it was a priority. So wouldn't be able to provide any more information than that. But there's no plans to expand fish farming on the west coast.
And the information that the Strawn, well, the fish farm aquaculture industry do put out is monthly. 3 monthly they have meetings down in Strawn. Who they do invite the public along to them, and they do have this. And as David mentioned, IMAS are quite they're regularly given reports on the condition of the harbour and the condition of the fish that are coming out of the harbour. So, and you know the biomass in the harbour has been set, and I guess that will never change now unless it goes less rather than more. The fish farms have been told that by the government and the EPA.
Fantastic, thank you for those answers. And second question is, could council please consider having land made available for a dog park somewhere on the west coast that has a section for small sized dogs as well as ones for large sized dogs?
Yeah. So we haven't had anyone approach us with a firm request to create a dog park. Whenever we've had informal requests, we have said that council would be open, at least at the staff level, to providing land for a dog park. There was a workshop at one point where a small community group said that they might be interested in that. That didn't eventuate. So there hasn't been anyone request land to use for a dog park, and therefore we haven't made any land available, but if a community organisation wanted to operate a dog park and they requested land, I would bring that to council for decision. Otherwise, the creation of dog parks has not been put in the annual plan, and it's not in the sport and rec plan either.
Just further, and then David did mention there was a group did come along and presented to us at a workshop regarding a dog park, and we did highlight some areas that we were willing to lease to that organisation, but it never went any further, given that we said that, you know, you could take it on and look after that area, but and that was in Queenstown. Yeah.
Thank you for those answers. Through Mayor, could council devise a strategy for dealing with small-term accommodation places, so, you know, for example, Airbnb might be one of those sort of categories, while at the same time making more housing stock available for rental accommodation, particularly for people coming to work?
Not entirely sure what dealing with means. We can devise strategies around a whole range of things, but it would require some guidance from council in the annual plan and budget for the creation of that strategy. Currently on the West Coast, those that are Airbnbs or zoned for visitor accommodation do pay commercial rates. And also all evidence indicates that that's not the primary impact, that's not the primary factor impacting rental availability or housing stress on the West Coast. The amount of Airbnbs on the West Coast is minute compared to our housing stock, even though our housing stock is relatively small and it pales into insignificance when compared to non-residential workforce impacts on housing constraint and the lack of investment in housing, particularly due to cyclical economy and the high risk factor put on by banks. So I'm not sure that if you did a strategy to look at increasing rental housing availability, it would recommend anything to do with Airbnbs. It would, I think, strongly suggest that you'd need to create more supply. Council staff have presented some options for that, which included disposing current housing stock and then reinvesting into subdivisions. There have been some concerns raised about the areas that council would have to create subdivisions, and we'll bring those back in due course for council to determine. But we are working on plans to increase housing stock on the West Coast.
And we are continuing to advocate with government and other organisations around housing stocks also.
Thank you.
Okay, no other questions? Sorry, right.
So through you, Chair, during NAIDOC Week in July, the public meeting council gave commitments to the Aboriginal community towards reconciliation. I was just wondering if any further consultation taken place since then, or does it have a timeline?
We do not currently have a timeline. We have had another meeting of the Reconciliation Action Group since NAIDOC Week, and really will be led by that group as to the time frame for putting together those actions. I think one of the key messages that we got out of NAIDOC Week was the fact that we should be following, I guess, their direction. The First Nations members of that group, their direction on how fast we go and what we do. So we'll continue to follow through that process. As councillors are aware, we've hired Reconciliation Tasmania. They're organising that for us. They're managing the process of us doing the Reconciliation Action Plan.
Okay, no other questions without notice. There's no motions without notice, and no motions on notice. Item 2.7 is petitions and representations. So we've got one petition, Rosebery Beautification petition, presented to council order. Was presented at the council ordinary council meeting of 26th of July. The general manager reviewed the petition and found that it was not in accordance with the Section 58 of the Local Government Act, and formally advised the lodger of the petition his decision on the 1st of August. The petition was resubmitted to General Manager on 25th of August and was reviewed under the Act and acceptance by the General Manager. The petition does not seek a public meeting. It's now presented to Council to determine any action to be taken in respect to the petition. Councillors, we've got the information there and the petition, which is a lot of them are being duplicated as well. We did discuss this with the person at the time and said that the information petition come back, we would review it and possibly take it to a workshop for review.
Through you, Mayor. Was it discussed with the proponents of this petition that perhaps a better way to get these things done is just to come and ask us to look at putting a budget allocation together to get it done?
They had done, I think, in the previous, but there was some issues with regard to that, that it was an individual and it wasn't an organisation. But since then, I think she's been talking to the Men's Shed in Rosebery, who are, I believe, well, we haven't heard from them, but at the time, believed that they were interested in taking on the project. I suggest that we take this to a workshop and discuss it at a workshop and get the Men's Shed involved in that workshop as well to get their input into it also.
Through you, Mayor, the discussions we had just the other week with the Rosebery people about the skate park, they indicated that the Men's Shed might not be very viable at the moment. So that would make it a bit difficult for that, wouldn't it?
It would, yes, and I think that's where we, given the case that we said at the time, it's not something which we'd be keen on an individual taking on.
Right.
We'd like to get involved with one of the Rosebery organisations to assist in the project. And she come back with a Men's Shed. There was some suggestions that she look at the Rosebery Neighbourhood House or even the Rosebery Lions Club to assist with, and all the, what's the other one? Rosebery Development Committee as well. So,
Through you, Mayor, just have a point of interest with petitions in general, just to clear this up in my own personal interest here. There's a lot of information about names, addresses and phone numbers here. How do we sit with the privacy with petitions being tabled in the public arena now? What's the rules and regulations?
It's managed under the Local Government Act, so it's a requirement under the Local Government Act that the petitions are in the open part of the meeting, but the names and addresses and all those things are included. So it's authorised under the local, not only authorised but also required under the Local Government Act that all those things are included.
Thanks for bringing that up.
Through you, Mayor, do we know that all of these people on the petition are from Rosebery?
No, there's no need to verify. We don't verify anything to do with the people that have signed the petition. We don't know that they are people, who they are or where they lived. All we do is assess it against the requirements in the Local Government Act, which are very specific as to, it's got a statement of what the petition is about and there's a statement from the person who is lodging the petition.
So, through you, Mayor, just on this whole privacy issue, there's the Personal Information Protection Act 2004, which speaks to basic, I think called basic personal information, which is information such as a person's name and phone number and all that sort of thing. And in there it does actually say that basic personal information can be shared between public authorities. But I'm following up on what Councillor Evans asked, because I'm not sure if we've met the PPIs, the IPPs in that legislation.
I'm satisfied we're compliant with privacy legislation and council's not at any risk. If it were any other case, then we wouldn't be able to accept petitions.
and given the fact that these petitions are out in the open before they come to council anyway, people do see them. It's not as if it's a closed petition, it's in open public arenas around Rosebery that these people sign the petitions. And they signed it under their own will, they weren't forced to sign it. Yep.
Thank you, Mayor and GM, for clarifying that. Just in in reference to your proposal that we move this to a workshop, I'd like to see some input from certainly the works management team in relation to what's proposed in the way of the equipment that's recommended to house the plant. Also, future maintenance requirements around that. So, So if the budget is sort of restricted and not taking that into account, I think we need that table and some guidance around that now.
Totally agree, councillor. That's why I suggested we take it to a workshop. We need to get the full costings around this and maintenance costs into the future, and the idea with getting an organisation out in the community to run this would be to maintain it going forward. But if that wasn't the case, what would be the cost to council? So that's why I think we need to take it to a workshop to get the full crutch of what it is going to cost council, rather than just what they've proposed here in the lady has proposed in her suggestion. That's the capital cost, but there is the ongoing maintenance cost as well.
Taking the opportunity for another comment, Mayor, it's great to see public support behind an idea like this, and we certainly encourage the community input for that type of thing. So, so it's good to see the activity coming out of Rotary.
I think obviously it will be important for councillors to talk to those community groups about. It's not $6,000 coming from nowhere. This would be $6,000 that you could spend on theoretically another project. And I think that's one of the difficulties we have when discussing community ideas with groups. And I think that's one of the problems in this case is that were you to offer $6,000 to the men's shed, would they say this is the best way to use that $6,000? So that's the difficult task for councillors, to allocate scarce resources, and the difficult task for community groups as well to decide what they want. So whenever we ask a question in isolation, do you want this? The answer is generally yes, but if you ask it, do you want this, if it means you can't have X, Y, or Z, then that's where the rubber hits the road in that respect.
But through you, Mayor, this petition in my mind raised something that could be value added for the West Coast if we had some relevant expert coming to give like workshop guidance to the community, and also perhaps in case they want to start their own nursery, about rehabilitation land, etc. Because the situation is, and then they can decide what plants that they should put in and where it's suitable, because we have around in Queenstown all of these pine trees that have grown up in parks and wildlife service areas, and they're dropping poison eagles and stuff like that. But there could be ways in which if we had experts come out here and teach people about the kind of things to rehabilitate land and what sort of plants can grow in their place, we can start phasing these out. So we can say to Parks and Wildlife Service, we've got this plant that's working through in our community.
I don't think that relies on this plan. I think it was today or tomorrow, Landcare was down doing a seed propagation workshop. And that is all about that, and they're very interested in, so I think that sort of work is occurring. I think that was with West Coast Connect as well. So there is good work happening in that space.
So this is more around the beautification of the Rosebery main street. So, and that's something I think we need to take to the workshop. Councillors agree on that?
Yep.
Yeah, we should have a workshop on it.
Okay. Thank you. Item 271, Mayors and Councillor Doris and Communication. For noting, Council resolved that the Mayors and Communication, Doris and Communication as presented be noted. Any questions? Yes.
On your diary, when you met John Boyd, you went to Population Park and Wildlife.
Yes.
Was the lease on Macquarie Heath discussed?
No, that was a phone conference at the time, and it was over when they made a decision on the Letts Bay jetties. Yeah, so that's all it was. Haven't as such met with Parks over the Macquarie Heads as yet. We're waiting on, it was supposed to be Will.
Jocelyn?
Yeah, Jocelyn. But I'm not sure who's at the moment in general manager of Parks. So he hasn't got back to me, so I'm not sure where they are sitting at the moment. I have talked to Roger Gents as well about a few things now that he's the Parks Minister. And one was on the Let's Bay jetties, and he's reviewing the engineer's report and the letter that we sent to John Lloyd with regard to that.
So through you, Mayor, you had a couple of meetings with a number of ministers in the Labor Party in the early part of the month. Can we just have a bit of a brief on what was talked about at those meetings?
Yeah, so it was more or less about some of the issues that we're facing here on the West Coast around the rates on the wind farms, or lack of rates for the wind farms, the housing issues we've got facing on the West Coast, some of the new projects that are happening around the mining industry, and just a overall briefing of issues that we are facing on the West Coast to try and advocate some of the support we require from the state government that we're trying to push for. Education, childcare, all them things that we've written to ministers about over the few months now.
Speaking pretty loudly, haven't we, been one of those things?
Yes, and we have had some positive feedback, and hopefully we'll continue to get more positive feedback.
And later in the month with Jackie Danby, similar issues?
Yeah, it's all the same thing. So, and the other thing that has come out of that, I did go with Beecher Townsend from Font PR, was at their meetings as well, and just to get, so he was around some of the discussion points, and he has come back with some ideas about how we can further push this into the state government's realms, and we're in discussion with David and myself with regard to some actions that come out of that in the near future. Yeah.
Should be all pushing as hard as we can.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor.
So it's a bit of hard work, but we're getting there.
Through you, Mayor, it's just a bit hard of hearing for the people online, so is it possible to move this back a bit? I've just been getting text messages telling me, thank you.
That's all right, Sam?
It just means that some of the councillors up the side might not be heard as clearly.
All right, we'll move up.
Well, possibly. Might be an idea. As long as all councillors can be heard, and not just one, it is a venue for all councillors, so.
Yeah, through you, Mayor, it was Councillor Stringer who first alerted me to the problem that no one on this side could be heard at the last meeting.
Right.
That recall then, Councillor Stringer?
Okay. Yep. Thank you. So that was for noting. No other discussions on that? Okay. Council workshops for noting. Council resolved to note the following workshops were conducted by council since the last ordinary meeting.
I have to change that.
So the Strategic Risk Council on the 30th of August, and the one for today was only the unconformity. So if we can make an amendment to the Tuesday, the 27th of September, it's just the unconformity. Everyone's happy with that? Yep. Okay. Item 273, Council's Decision Status Report and Action Item List. Council resolved that the status report action item of open council meeting decision be received. So, any discussions on the matter?
Yeah, through you, Mayor, there was a little bit fair bit of discussion at that meeting. We were there on playground. And,
Yes.
although there was a lot of debate around the Z and Zip development. I see it's
Strawn.
Strawn, sorry. Yep, Strawn. So those main issues about moving the kitchen potentially, we're going to go ahead with that. Are we?
Council's asked for us to go back and do redesign. We're now in the process of doing redesign and costing. We don't have a good idea about when the redesign and costings will come back. I'm sure, as everyone knows, that professions like architects and quantity surveyors are very busy at the moment, so it could be another few months before we can bring it back to council.
So is there any would they be able to just give us a rough estimate on?
That's all we've asked
Yeah,
for,
okay, good,
and we
good.
still might be a month or so out. So
Okay.
I think we've got the designs, the options are designed, and now we're waiting for,
Fairly minor amendments really, but just moving the kitchen and the storeroom.
I think it'll probably stay as is.
Probably major.
yeah, before I can bring it back to you, I need to get advice from
Advice,
someone who
yes.
knows what they're doing when estimating a major construction project. So
Yeah.
as soon as we get that back, the month after, council will have a report with, I think it was 3 options for each.
Yes.
Their estimated costs and our staff recommendation on which way to proceed.
And are the same with the Z and keeping of the squash court, are we in the same sort of level?
Yep, so
same level?
it'll be exactly the same. As soon as we get the costings back, it'll be to council with the 3 options, the costs, and then our recommendation.
So through you, Mayor, all of those options are still going to be in those particular site locations, though they're not.
I can't recall, for Strawn, I think, were we looking at one around the corner?
Not playground equipment, I'm just talking about the kitchen, sorry guys, let me.
Yeah, so there was 3, the councillors had a variety of opinions about what was best in Strawn and Zern. We'd gone away and come up with 3 options that represent that spectrum of opinions from council. The designs are done, and as soon as we get costings for each of those designs, taking into account a whole range of other factors, we'll make a recommendation to council. But the 3 options for each site will be presented. I think in Strawn, one of the options was around the corner. Not to preempt what I'd recommend, but that would add significant time and risk to the project. So that will be taken into account when we make the recommendation.
Okay, no other discussions on that?
The other thing for that, just the SES MOU that's still being signed by SES.
I believe we got it back today or yesterday, something like that. Yeah. So yeah, this is sort of at end of, yeah.
Okay, item 274, committees of council. Council resolved that council committee report as presented be noted. So we've got one from the Emergency Management Committee, Education and Training Committees for noting. Any discussions on any of that?
Yeah, through you, Mayor, it sounds, a person online is telling me that now it's hard to hear you. So, I'm wondering if this needs a sound check or this device.
Well, there's also a speaker here.
Speaker
I dare
here.
say if the technology is currently not working, then it would be a matter we would try and review for the next meeting. Of course, this is not a setup. This is not a technological setup designed to do live streaming of meetings. It's a video conferencing setup that we're jerry-rigging to do it. If councillors do think that a more reliable bespoke system is needed, Burnie Council's recently installed one for just under $50,000.
Is it working well so far?
I believe so.
And just for the public's interest, the meetings are open for the public to come to the gallery as well. So
yeah.
The reason why we got Skype was because of COVID, and we can at any time. We're not obligated to have the meetings online. We can stop them at any time if we feel that we want to. So the preference is for these people to be present at our meetings in the gallery would be ideal. Okay, General Manager's Report. Item 275 of the agenda is recommendation that the General Manager's Report as presented be noted. Someone like to move that way, please. Move Councillor Evans, seconded Councillor Newman. Open for discussion. Any discussions on any of the items? Just
I was just going to ask about property management. You seem to always have one for rent. Over the last few months, there always seems to be one property ready for rent. Is that the same property? Or?
I believe it's the one down here in Queenstown, Dilga Court.
yes.
I'm not sure what the issue is there. There has been, we have had some issues with the the property management company, which I should be able to provide more advice about in
Just
next
the last
meeting.
few months of the current real estate, isn't it? Seems that we have-
Yeah, I'm not sure. There might have been some maintenance issues there, but it does say ready to rent. So I'll look into that and get some further advice.
I've got a question on the note 4 on the income statement with pension remission. We've had a increase in pensioner remissions for rates, and
We have this.
have a lot more pensioners in the community.
There has been an uptick, correct?
That would be it's either more pensioners in the community or more pensioners applying
Applying
for
for
it. And I suspect it's more pensioners in the community as we have had a fairly dramatic changeover in population.
Which is a little bit more
Which leads,
data with regard to our aged care as well,
it does,
and the requirements.
And leading on to some more discussion later on about our FAG grants
Mm.
and the basis figures for that. Anyway, another point.
Also, I noticed the Strawn Waterfront development is out. Are we going to have a public consultation around that, or?
At some point we will. What we've gone out for at the moment, have we gone out yet? Yes.
Yes, it's
We've gone
coming
out for pre-design.
Yes. Okay.
So that is like geotech, trying to understand all the planning issues. And we've still got work to do to resolve some of those long-running problems, land tenure issues on the Strawn Waterfront before we go to design. Step after that will be to go to a designer. They'll come up with concepts. They'll come up with sort of final concepts based on the previous concept plans, which have been out for community consultation. And then there'll be no doubt both specific consultation with those on the Strawn Waterfront, the businesses and others, and there'll be more general community consultation on the final design drawings for both the waterfront and the visitor centre. The visitor centre may need a little bit more community consultation just because the actual waterfront designs have gone out twice now for community feedback in the past. Visitor centre has not, as it's a new project.
Is there, through you, Mayor, is there, with these kind of public consultations, is there any plan for council to do some marquee setups and events as well?
I follow council's community engagement policy, in which case no community meetings would not normally be part of a project consultation. Of course, that doesn't stop councillors going and meeting with the community, but if councillors wanted council staff to arrange that, they would need to change the council engagement policy and then provide the budget to staff that.
So I guess it's similar to what we've done with the Strawn and Rosebery Parks. Once all the information is available, I could call if I'm still here, call a public meeting, and we'll do the same thing as what we've done for that weekend. So we'd probably do the same. Well, and that's why I asked the question. Councillor, once we get the information, we'll look at doing something similar so that we can get the word out to the broader community in Strawn around that, and maybe even Queenstown, given that, and Zane and Rosebery, I guess, as well, given that it is the only port on the west coast, and a lot of people do use that area. Okay.
One question, I've searched the agenda for some information on the progress of the Queenstown Skate Park redevelopment. Is anything happening in that space?
That's not a council project, just to be clear.
It's not?
No.
Okay. All right.
But the
But
mayor may have something.
I can inform you, the Queenstown Lions Club have engaged a designer to give some concept design around that skate park / pump track
Okay.
in the existing location, and to utilise the area that was where the old pipe band hall was for the pump track. We have got a design back. We're still waiting for him to come back with some costings before we make that public. So we're still waiting for the design.
Pass that on. It's interesting that one skate park, i.e. Rosebery, is a council project, and we've got Queenstown one that's not. So it's interesting how these things pan out.
So
Can I
with-
just, put in there? The Lions Club, we donated the money from the recreation ground, and we thought it would take the pressure off the council by doing it that way, and we put the money back into the town And then Rosebery or G can't say, well, everything goes to Queenstown. That's why we've put the money, we've paid for the
Design
design
So,
work, yeah.
so Rosebery Skate Park is in worse condition than Queenstown Skate Park, and our assessment under the Sport and Recreation Plan is that we have some urgent priorities to look at all skate parks except for Strawn, but we need to do that over a number of years. So this year we've got the Rosebery Skate Park construction hopefully happening pending council approving a design, but we also have redesign of the Zeehan Park, which includes the skate park, and redesign of the Queenstown park and plaza, and then it would be, all things being equal, a council project in one of the very near following years to do a redesign on the Queenstown skate park if we thought there was going to be funding for construction. I guess what the Lions Club has done is brought that forward for design work, which is...
It remains design work.
Yeah, and it did come out of a presentation from a local person that did come and present to council, and at the time he was more told that it would be a few years before it happened, if council were to look at it. It's something that is on the radar of council, but it is 6 years or so down the track, not knowing exactly the time frame, but it would be happening in the near future, and did suggest at the time that he'd go and talk to the Lions Club regarding that, to move it forward, at least to get the concept. And we have also engaged the Mountain Bike Club to be part of that committee. So it's not just the Lions Club, we just are funding the first concept design out of the, as Councillor Shea has mentioned, out of the money that is just does come in from the RV camping from the recreation ground. That's where that funding goes to, back into community projects. So that's where it stands at the moment. So as soon as we get the final design and costings, we will present that to councillors as information, and it will go out to the public as well. Okay, no other discussions on the General Manager report. Put it to a vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, item 276 is correspondence. Council resolved that the correspondence inwards and outwards as presented be noted. So we have got some response required. We've got a letter from Michael Purton regarding the Macquarie Heads Camp ground toilet block.
Through you, Mayor, I'd be keen to get a bit of a pricing of the background to this and how this all came about.
At some point, someone authorised the erection of a toilet down there that's private to apparently a group of site holders. They've never had a licence in the past, but it is a site. It's a separate entity to any particular site, and it is the only one there. And we've issued them with a licence so they can sign it, so that gives us some legal framework to actually manage what is quite a risky object in a number of ways. Risky from an environmental health perspective, risky from an environmental management perspective, risky from the perspective that at some point we've allowed a particular group to have a toilet but not offered a carte blanche to others to install such a toilet. So we've issued them a licence. Council's determined what the licence fees are down there, and we've issued that with that licence.
Sorry, Councillor, can I ask how issuing the licence has minimised the risks you just indicated to me?
Well, it has things like inspection regimes and all the other terms and conditions that you have in the licence, requirements for the people who have signed the licence to manage things in accordance with their regulations and those sorts of things.
There's evidence they're not doing that at the moment.
No, not necessarily, but there's no legal framework. To be completely clear, my preference would be that the toilet is dismantled. That makes it much clearer for everyone down there that there's one rule for everyone. That said, at some point council authorised it, but never did so in a formal way and never put in place a framework. This is rectifying that and putting in place an appropriate framework.
So through you, Mayor, you're saying that when council formalised this arrangement, because when I think of formalised, I think something's written down somewhere, but you're saying nothing's been written down that
No.
council provided that toilet?
No.
And that it's going to be located there, and this was the arrangement?
No.
So it was never, the council didn't put it there? Is that?
But they assisted in some way. We're not 100% sure how.
So if council put it there, why is someone else having to have a licence
Well,
over it privately, but it is actually?
It's not, no, it's not a council toilet. If it was a council toilet, it would have been removed now.
But council assisted in putting it in there?
If council's answer back to them is, dear Mr. Purton, this is a council asset, then tomorrow I'll be asking the ops team to remove it.
Not to fix it or
No.
replace it?
No,
Trade it?
no. We've just built a toilet block down there.
Through you, Mayor, you don't think that toilet's taking the pressure off the two toilets?
Yeah.
That are not adequate enough during the summertime period?
I don't believe so, and most other permanent site holders have chemical toilets on their sites. So these people have a different arrangement than all other site holders.
So what do you, if you remove the toilet, are you going to try and occupy that?
I'm not saying I'm going to remove the toilet. I recognise that council at some point authorised it.
Yeah.
While my preference would be to remove it, we have offered them a licence with the same fee as any other site licence, and that's what they've written to council complaining about.
So through you, Mayor, so can we do that with any other council property? Could we go to the Rosebery toilet and say, well, we're offering it to be leased by?
It's not a council asset.
It's not
Well,
council
but
asset.
we put it in there.
No, we didn't. We assisted. We never, at the time, I think at the time, the general manager at the time approved it, and no, there's no formal documentation say he approved it. That's going on the hearsay of the proponent, that the general manager at the time was involved in it. And
And we
it's
don't
not
accept-
recent general manager, it's a while ago, it's a long time ago. And that council employees may have assisted in the installation of it, that's all.
Sorry, through you, Mayor, there's a provision in the current lease arrangements with each of those proponents, not these, all,
Yep, but
to provide a toilet facility.
Yep,
Is
so
there not?
each site can have a chemical toilet. This is a separate site where they've built a bespoke toilet that's separate to their sites.
And there's
So it's an additional site.
Yeah,
So a group of, I think, 9
9.
or so, we don't know because we don't control access to the site or have any indication of who uses it. So that's another problem. But it's a separate site where they have their own, it's a long drop type toilet rather than the contained chemical toilet that is allowed in every other site. So
But we do recognise it as an asset, because I mean, part of that.
no, we don't. It's not a council asset.
But, well, we helped build it, so we must have helped.
No, but we help build lots of different things. So we give grants to groups to help with things. That
In
doesn't.
kind, that's, doesn't mean we own
If
it.
they don't sign the licence, then yes, it would become a council asset, and
Oh, good.
I've indicated what we'll do with it as a council asset.
Right.
So through you, Mayor, when Dirk was your general manager, and he tried to get rid of it years ago, and they got the environmental people down from Olsen to check it. But I have seen a letter from the environmental people, they haven't got on me. It's one of the cleanest toilets you've ever seen.
That's not exactly what he said. It passed the inspection for what it is, but like I said, I've offered them a licence. We've offered them a licence to keep it.
However,
But why, sorry,
sorry,
why aren't we charging that much? Because it's not a full block, just.
Council has determined the site fee. It is not for me to make a decision to offer a discount. If you want to offer a discount, council can offer a discount. You'd need to move a motion saying that you're going to give a gift or financial benefit to Mr. Purton of whatever amount, and then we need to report that in the annual report. But it's not, I can't make a decision to give a gift except for in the circumstances of the council's policy on financial and in kind.
could council instead annex that toilet or to make it the public toilet for all.
No, we would not be offering that for a public
But
toilet.
we could,
No,
we could decide that because we put it.
no, they're not, as I've indicated, I would remove it on the basis of risk. I wouldn't be comfortable with having that as a publicly facing council
Even though
asset.
it's passed an inspection from someone's coming, that's fine.
Well,
That is-
I don't need to argue about it.
No.
I've indicated what I would do. That would be an operational matter.
It's a private toilet.
A private toilet that has public access.
No, it doesn't
No.
have public, there's
It's
nine
not.
site holders
Nine
have
people got
keys.
I'm sorry, you were wrong there. During the last summer, when our toilet kept on blocking up and there was a line up of 40 people, we went down and got them and took them up there and let them use that toilet. Because the two toilets
You did.
the council put in are not adequate enough and they don't work properly.
So they had to relieve the other people because otherwise what they could do, they were going to create all sorts of mess. You know?
If council wants to build more public toilets down there, council can allocate the budget to do that. That is fine. You, like with community groups, you need to decide what you're not going to do with our scarce resources as well. What this letter is asking is saying they don't want to pay the $1,500. If council wants to provide a gift of $1,500 or a financial benefit of $1,500, that is entirely up to council. That is not a decision for the general manager.
So this definitely occupies its own site. It is one of the sites we've allocated. It has a number and everything across all the sites.
How big is the site? What's the size of it?
I don't know, but it's separate to any other site, so it's its own entity.
It's got a number though, it says site 48.
No, across the road from site 48.
It's not on the site.
So in other words, it's actually on the council property area, so we can actually.
If council wants to make a resolution today that it is council property, then please go ahead and do so. I'll write back and let them know that it's council property. And as I've said, I'll be asking operations to remove it as soon as possible.
You'll be recommending that.
No, I don't need to recommend it. That would be an operational matter.
Okay. Now, if you did that, what risk would that come for the people that are there if they have one next door?
Those site holders are all entitled to have a chemical toilet on their site.
Ah. That's fine. Can we bring that camera forward? So who are the toilet owners?
We're unaware except for Mr. Purton.
So I have asked Mr. Burton to give a list of those people that were involved in the original. Some have pulled out. I believe that there's five people, but he hasn't provided the list. But he did say he couldn't remember who the five were. But I think there's the Hughes, is it Hughes? Burtons and a couple others. There was four names that he reeled off at the time. But he couldn't provide me a list with the total number.
So through you, Mayor, there's no indication that you want any decision from us here. You just putting
No, he's written to
He
councillors.
wants a more favourable fee attached, so they're willing to pay a fee, but not the $1,500.
We're not going to direct the fee at poor old John Burton, though. We've got these other 5 or 7.
Well, we've only got one person
One
on our
person
list.
on the list.
If council doesn't make any decision, I'll write to him and say, council has determined the fees for sites at Macquarie Heads is $1,500. That's what you're required to pay, otherwise you'll forfeit your site as per council's decision.
Oh, so you'll just pay what normally pays with the
They
other.
don't pay anything.
They don't pay anything at the moment. But they've got a lease now, a lease fee for $1,500 now,
Because of the toilet.
for that toilet. Because it's on the block.
And they just didn't have that, they didn't get assisted by council in the first place, and they wouldn't have to pay that $1,500 in the license.
And they wouldn't have a separate toilet site.
GM, do you want a decision from us?
Well, council can make a decision if they don't want me to make them pay
We've set our fee.
$1,500.
Didn't we? We had a resolution just the other week where we set the fee for a site. If it's a site and you consider it so,
Yes, I consider it a site. That's
we've set our fees, haven't we?
And if there's only 5 users of the toilet, we're not managing everybody that uses the park. I mean, we're treading on, some risky ground here.
We could always write to them and say, look, you know, we've offered you the licence for 1,500, we don't advise you to offer that toilet to anyone else.
I certainly would not be encouraging anyone to offer their toilet to others.
I think we've set our fees, haven't we? We've set our fees.
Yeah, same for them.
I thought we set our fees. We had this debate, we had a massive discussion with a whole heap of people about this, didn't we?
Yeah.
Maybe that's why you've still got 49 sites unoccupied.
Maybe.
It's a set fee of $1,400.
But the sites that are unoccupied don't have to pay $1,400. They pay the
$20 a
annual
night.
the annual rate.
Annual rate.
And the advantage that the other side holders have over this one that we're offering the $1,500 fee is they can bring in their chemical toilet free of charge and deal with that. You know, we don't have to know they've got their chemical toilet there.
It's the same for these site holders. They can have a chemical toilet if they
This
wish.
one's a permanent fixed one,
Yeah, this is a long drop essentially.
right? How's that work? Is going to
No, it's just a sand.
big hole in the ground?
It's a hole in the ground.
And it's got,
Oh, the council has to maintain. So
No, we don't maintain
we
it.
don't maintain it.
They
They maintain it. They pump
It-
it out.
If we empty it out.
No.
They pump
They
it out.
pump
Yeah.
They pump it out.
So we want to charge you $1,500 and just go ahead and pump it out at your own fee, then, basically.
Yeah, it's a private facility. It's not a public facility.
No, it's partly assisted by council.
Well, just like say you had a house not in the sewage, say up in Gormston. You have a house, you pay rates, but if your septic tank fills up, you still need to pay. Council doesn't pump that out for you. Relatively usual.
Okay, so but if we say you're giving
I can make it very. What he's asking for is for council to grant him a remission for $1,500.
$1,500.
I've told him it's going to cost $1,500. He's written to council saying, GM's told me it's going to cost $1,500. Can you give me a discount? That is what he's that's what he's asking for. And what I've said to him is, it's not up to the general manager to give discounts or financial benefits. It's up to council. All we do then is put it in the annual report. It's because it's a political decision because you're taking public funds and giving it to private individuals.
If we did this, he doesn't have to rely on prior agreements with the other nine or anything like that to keep coming and use the toilet, because he can turn around and say, well, I paid this licence, and so.
That is just one of the many legal problematics with the arrangement as it is. We're trying to clean it up as best we can without removing it.
So you're saying Harry could turn up tomorrow and say, well, I was actually one of those nine too?
We only have Mr. Purton on the record. It'll be up to him who signs the licence agreement.
But if any of the other people, they come forward and say, well,
Actually, no, it won't, because we've got conditions over whose name can be on the licence agreement, haven't we?
Well, we've made
We've
made a
very-
flexible decision that in this case, reflecting prior practice, that we can put all people on it.
All the people that are involved.
so will that cause?
So you're opening the door. We've had this discussion before with them. There's other people that want other names through prior history on their licences, and we've told them no.
It is
And you're going to go ahead and open it up for these people to have more names on it based on prior history. I think
based on our
I think that's a
understanding
foolish
of
decision.
well, the only other decision for council would be to write back to him and say, no, we're actually going to remove it.
Okay.
So if the decision was that we do remove it, talking to Mr. Purton as well, he did say that he wouldn't pay the $1,500. They'd remove the toilet. Would there be any cost to him to remove it, or we'd just do that in? We'd do it on,
I'd take,
given that we
yeah,
put it in.
I'd
Based-
take
based
some
on-
advice, but yeah, probably.
Based on all of the discussions we've had here over a year now,
Yeah.
and the serious letdown people have had because they couldn't add names to a licence, and we're going to just offer this to somebody on some past history, I think that's a double standard on our part. I think it would be a foolish decision to do. That's just in reference to adding licence names to the licence, all right? I'm not arguing anything else about that. We cannot make a decision outside of these poor people who wanted just to add another family member to it, and we said no, we can't just go and add licences, names to this on the same basis. I just find that amusing at best.
And the other thing is, if council does the right thing and take the toilet away, we know the operational staff will get rid of all that long drop and all the bits underneath it. And put it-
There's nothing. It's literally a hole in the ground. It's just I think there's a pipe under
There's
that.
a pipe. I think it's just a culvert, straight down vertical culvert.
becomes the new long jump.
Now, are we refereeing a debate between what's best, chemical or long drop? Chemical.
Long drops can be.
Yeah, so I think we need to resolve this. So it appears that councillors aren't agreeable to reduce aren't favourable to reduce the fee, given that we've already made a precedent over the fee. If the proponent comes back and says that he is willing to remove the toilet or have the toilet removed, the council will do that free of charge. Are councillors happy? if I put that
Furthermore,
to
that
a
there
motion?
can't be any names added outside of the scope of what we've already discussed
But
about
if
adding names to a licence.
if he's willing to leave his name on there and get the other proponents that are around the table to assist with the payment of that $1,500, that's up to him. But his name still remains on there as the individual, given that he's the only one that's got a name on it at the present moment. And then
So at least he's got a choice.
he's got a choice then, yes. So he chases up finding the other proponents who have asked for a list but haven't been provided with the list of all them people. He wasn't aware of who at the time was part of that as well, so he was trying to find the list of the people.
And for all we know, they might have assisted in maintaining the drop down so it's environment friendly. That's why it might.
Well, that's probably what we need to write back with that regard, that the fee stays at the $1,500. If he can find the other proponents to support that $1,500, so he's not paying the full amount himself, or if he's not willing to do that, council will remove the toilet free of charge. Because he has mentioned that he wouldn't be paying that, and he would have it removed, but he wouldn't. He wouldn't be paying to remove it. So.
So would he get a month time frame turnaround?
Well,
We can arrange that.
That'd be operational matter for them to deal with. Happy with that?
I'll prepare a letter for
Councillors?
them now.
You happy, councillors?
Yeah.
Yep, okay.
2 letters from the Callahans.
We had, 2 letters from the Callahans. I still can't understand where that.
I'm not sure what this next letter in line's about. There's a bit of a disgrace. A ghost town in the making. That's a bit rough. And the poor lady's been stranded here.
I think he's having a bit of a go at the unconformity, from where I'm trying to read between the lines, but with some of the funding that's given to local artists, or I don't think. I have asked for a meeting with this couple previously on a couple of occasions and had no response. So after they asked for a meeting, and then when I allocated a date, they weren't available, or they didn't turn up. I think we had arranged the meeting and they never fronted. So.
Yeah, just to review now, I think that would be the continued course of action, try and get that meeting through, and just see what the issues might be.
Yep.
Simply thank you for your letter.
It was
Mayor
tabled
Woodwell.
at your request. Good day.
And then if they want to meet with me, I'm quite open to meet again or meet.
No problems. We can
Okay,
do that.
thank you. Okay. Next item is no other discussions on any other correspondence. No, that's all for noting.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry?
The financial assistance grant. Sorry, I'm through you there. It was an interesting read. Financial assistance grants has gone down, from 389 or something to 365 or something, and our numbers of what they consider 4,118 or something. I can't remember.
It'll go up a bit at the next once they get the.
So this was all put together prior to getting the last consensus.
Yeah, it's mainly because they've removed the non-resident factor, or whatever they called it. We strongly advocated for that to stay. We thought, and also the small population factor, they've removed that. We strongly advocated for both of those to stay. Obviously, they don't just talk to us, they talk to all councils, and I'm sure some councils that don't have the same issues as us advocated strongly for those.
Fag grant discussions have always been heavily overburdened by the larger organisations who make an absolute monster out of it, let's face it. I mean, it's interesting for those councillors that are fairly new to this, how the fag grants came about and what they're designed to do. You know, they are the basis of the largest amount of assistance to keep local government afloat, on the basis that rates have never done any more than pay for water and sewage or pay for wages. They don't certainly cover the cost of running a council, they never have. So the fag grant, which is what this is called, was the basis or the contribution from the federal government to local government for its return of its revenue to those respective governments. That's what it was supposed to do. In other words, your GST contribution coming back to your community. And it is capped at $380 something. So they're suggesting that's the contribution for the West Coast. Again, large economic powerhouses for small states like Tasmania, the largest contributor to its GDP, gets the smallest amount in return. It's a disgrace. However, we've had the arguments and lost them. We do it regularly and lose regularly. But there you go. Our fag grant is now bugger all. Absolute rubbish as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, that's just my note there for the minute, Sam. I'm having a rant, but it's a disgrace that federal and state governments bloody treat local government in this respect, especially local governments that contribute so much to their respective economies.
Thank you, councillor.
Yeah, so, but on that point, through you, Mayor, is there any advocacy that we can turn that around?
I spend a lot of time writing to the Grants Commission. So there's two issues. One is that grants ceased being indexed. The amount of money the federal government put into grants ceased being indexed somewhere around 98. So the total pool of funding is getting relatively smaller over time. The grants were designed originally to equalise between different council areas as well. They've only ever had enough to do about 10% of the job of equalisation, so that the total pool is not sufficient. We also meet with the Grants Commission twice a year. We write to them twice a year. They put out discussion papers, so that it's multi-year advocacy. We strongly put our position. We always have the chance to be heard, yet they do need to listen to a whole range of views. And also with both of these, small population didn't make much of a difference to most councils, so therefore they thought it was unnecessary. With the non-resident visitor one, there isn't a good source of data. So they also make decisions based on there's no data for us to really do this accurately, therefore we're not going to do it. So that's different to saying it's not a problem. They're just saying, well, we can't do it because we don't collect our own data. So there's a range of reasons why advocacy hasn't been successful, but it is the number one priority for the Australian Local Government Association to increase the total financial assistance.
ABS surely don't show how much tourism and what visitor numbers coming in.
Not at the detail that would be required for making these financial decisions. So they lay all that out in their report about why they don't.
It has covered fairly comprehensive, it always does, but it's still, I mean, they're ripping us out of us on health, they're ripping it out of education, they're ripping it out of fag grant, which is the basis of survival of local government. Amalgamated oil, well, fag grant's the basis of survival. Without it, you are dead in the water. And they continually to erode that capacity of, the people's government, really.
Keep advocating for it.
Which we continue to do all the time. Yep. Okay. Item 277 is council to move into the planning authority role. Recommendation that council now acts as the planning authority under the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act 1993 in accordance with the Regulation 25 of the Local Governments Regulations 2015. Someone like to move that way, please. Move Councillor Stringer, second to Councillor Graham. So the item is, sorry, need to move that way. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried.
Councillor Ryan Sykes doesn't have this because
Yeah, I don't vote
it's because it's 12 Jack Street
12
strong.
Jack Street, so.
there you go. Did someone call me back in?
Yes, we will, Councillor Ryan Sykes. So, Councillor Ryan Sykes had a peculiar interest in the item on the agenda, item 278, which was the late item agenda is report DA 2022/47 outbuilding retrospective. So the recommendation is one representation was received following public exhibition of the proposal. A copy of the representation is to be provided to councillors. The issue raised in the preparations are as follows: setback requirements, positioning of the building, appropriate regulatory checks and balances. Council's contracted planning officer makes the following comment in response to these concerns. 1. The setback requirements. The representative believes that the rules exist to protect all parties and ensure the same degree of quality for the end product. They stated that they are understood and requirement setback is provided uniformity for the build form in the street.
Mayor, I reckon we've all read this.
Okay.
Get to the recommendation.
Okay, the recommendation is that the report by Council's Planning Officer dated 16th September 2022 concerning DA 2022-47 be received and the Council refuse the application for the outbuilding for the reasons detailed in the following table. Clause 842 and setbacks of the building envelope for all dwellings. Someone like to move the way for discussion? Move Councillor Graham, seconded Councillor Newman. Open for discussion. Any discussion on the matter?
Through you, Mayor. What's happening? What's the series of events that's led to this? We've got a. Did it not need planning?
No, they built it in the wrong location.
Through there, there was an original DA approved.
Oh, okay. So we've
This
got
is
there.
this is a retrospective application, with a setback of 4.5 metres from front boundary. When the building process started, the building surveyor did their initial inspection and established that the slab had been laid within 30 mil of the front boundary. So a new application was put in for retrospective approval, which is in front of us now, but the whole shed has been constructed on the slab.
Clearly. So there was a previous DA issued clearly detailing the setback requirement.
Correct. Yes.
And they built
There was confusion,
That whole Jack Street's got confusion about where the property
yeah,
line
but
is.
the permit issue does point out to the applicant that it is their responsibility to determine their land boundaries, and if they have any issues to
There's no.
get that sorted.
There was surveyor's specs with there. There was surveyor's specs with there. That side of Jack Street. There's no doubt about that. Thank you.
Any other discussion on the matter?
Oh, further, sorry. My further discussion would be to ask, is it all right if I ask directly, Mayor, of the,
Yes.
what would be the outcome if continued non-compliance exists?
Well, there'd be two options from this point if it was refused. The applicant could appeal our decision as council, or they could either decide to remove or not remove. If it was not complied with, it would go down the normal way of compliance action.
So towards the first move to shed.
Yeah, I'd initially go through land use enforcement because that's
Yeah.
where we are at the moment. So eventually it would have to come to that.
And eventually, if you decided not to refuse, then the person who made the representation could likewise appeal and go through that process.
And they've, of course, jumped all the hoops and met all the requirements and going through the process of meeting their clean requirements.
Yeah,
Right,
I think
next.
they stated a bit of that in their representation. with
That's
regards to
significant expense to them.
what-
Thank you again, Alison.
Okay, so the recommendation is that the application be refused for the outbuilding for the reason detailed in the table. So we've got mover and we've got a seconder. We'll put it to no other discussion on the matter. We did have a mover and a seconder. Yep. Put it to a vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried.
We'll write to the councillor, so you don't need to have a discussion about
Yep.
what the outcome was now.
Yep. Item 279 is council to move out of the planning authority role. The recommendation is that council moves from its role as a planning authority back into council. Would someone like to move that way? Move councillor Newman, second councillor Shay. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Okay, item 280 is matters proposed for closed meeting as listed. Council may close a meeting as part of the meeting when certain matters are being or are to be discussed on the grounds of closure for the recording minutes of the meeting. So the recommendation is that items 284/22 to 293/22 discussed by council in closed session. Someone like to move that way, please? Move councillor Evans, seconded councillor Butterfield. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Okay. Item 281 is council resolved by absolute majority to go into closed session to consider the following matters, time being 6:16. Someone like to move that way, please? Move councillor Ryan Sykes, seconded councillor Stringer. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried.